Now, when it comes to the future,
Visionary leadership.
We've actually had a long-standing conversation about this over time. Would you like to share that?
Yes, in the very early days, one of the first workshops that I watched William facilitate, there was conversation in the workshop, and several people talked about visioning, who had the strong visioning style preference, talking about themselves being visionaries. And of course, I have, as you know, a strong preference for the visioning style, and I consider myself to be a very strong visionary, right? So after the workshop, I was talking with William. We were debriefing, and I was asking him questions about why he did this and why he did that. And then I gave him one of those smiles, like I have something really wise to say. And I said, William, don't you think that people who have a preference for the visioning style, don't you think those are the visionaries? And he said to me with his big smile,
what does being a visionary really mean? Doesn't it mean a person who can really think about the future, that is a future that you want to lead to, that you want to aspire to?
Well, they can think about the future and plan for the future, and help people to move into that future.
And sometimes it's a bold future, but is it only that kind of a future? And so we broadened out the conversation from that starting point, just as an interesting twist and turn, if you will, to say, well, does the visioning style, is that the only way of thinking about the future? Well, no, it's not, because modifying...
Well, first of all, every person thinks about the future. Sure. That's what you said to me that day.
Yes.
That really gave me that humbling moment to say, okay, let me open my perspectives, let me open my heart and my perspectives to other ways of thinking. But,
and that every person, when they think about the future, that is their ideal.
Yes, well,
that is what they're...
For them.
That for them,
That's true.
This is what I think would be great to have.
Right. But the point here, let's don't get into that too much, because that could be a whole different conversation. The point here is, though, that every person thinks about the future. They just think about it in different ways. So we come back to, the question is not, are you a future thinker? But how are you a future thinker? How do you think about the future in your own way? And what contribution can you make to proactively innovating and creating this future?
Right. So what would you say is the modifying?
Well, modifying wants to, again, simplify, build on. As soon as the modifying style thinks about, okay, here's what I've got. What can I do with it? That's how they think about the future. I've got all these resources. Now what can I do with it?
What are some shorter term benefits that I can aspire to? What are some things that would make a difference in the near term for people?
Now, it's interesting.
More relevant, if you will.
I was going to say, it's interesting. I'm not exactly sure that those who prefer modifying style, if they actually think in terms of the word short term, they think more relevant.
Right, yes.
They think more, what can we do right now? What can we make happen right now? Yeah.
And
very
so
relevant.
To take us into a future that is an improvement over what we have.
Better than what we have, simpler than what we have. Yes.
And so you go to exploring. They think about the future in terms of kind of an open field of discovery.
Where's some new territory we've never gone into before? I remember.
Where's the adventure?
I remember we were doing a research program and we were interviewing top executives, CEOs, chairmen of large corporations around the world. And I was amazed at how many of those corporations, when these leaders had taken over, the corporation had just gotten into so many diverse products and services, and they realized it was really draining their energy. So that does happen. Exploring can definitely take us into new territory, which can be very helpful at times. And other times you have to come back and see what can we do more practical.
What would you say for visioning?
The visioning style of change is more long-term. It's more out there in the future. And knowing the visioning style very well, I would say that we do think in terms of long-term, out there. Also, we think about the future in an ideal way. We imagine ideally how we want it to be. So like modifying looks at, hey, I've got all these resources. What can I do with that in the future? Visioning wants a blank slate and wants to imagine and build that future in their mind and then ultimately put it into paper.
And experimenting is going to look at the future in terms of what's achievable that's practical. What's a way of putting things together that haven't been put together before. And they'll start creating a picture of the future that is kind
Actually,
of
they'll start creating a picture of a process to
process.
get to that future.
And then a future that is a novel combination of things.
Yes.
Putting together the best of this, the best of that. It's a little bit like when we think about the future with taking a vacation.
Right.
As one example.
Right.
The experimenting would say, what vacation could we do that put together the best parts of the last 4 vacations we've had?
Right.
Modifying would say, let's think about a vacation that really takes what we did before and takes it to a whole next level. Exploring would say, let's think about a vacation in which we just get somewhere with no plans and see what the place offers to us.
How about we go to the airport and buy a ticket to the next plane that's leaving? Exploring might do that.
So they'll take vacations without necessarily a lot of plans.
Right.
The visioning would say, well, ideally, if I could do anything I wanted on this vacation, what would I do? So again, they all think about the future. And even in a family,
yes,
you bring together these 4 different perspectives of thinking about the future. It creates a greater likelihood of having a future that everyone can realize the benefit from, if you call that success. And also, not just the task, but the relationship, it gets everyone involved and have everyone feel like they can be a part of the future, which actually ties us back to being a change agent, and even taking risks. That when people see a future and they see the risks involved from all 4 styles, and they see what it's going to take to lead towards that future, all 3 of these work together.
Yes.